Well, I grew up and was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I grew up in a two-parent household, loved my mom and my dad. My dad has since passed, and he had Alzheimer's, so you'll hear a little bit about that. That I was able to help here in Atlanta. And so how I ended up in Atlanta is I had an aunt who got her master's degree here. And my parents had traveled through here and talked about Atlanta. And of course, when Maynard became mayor, that was a big thing nationally. And so I heard about that and always had fond thoughts of Atlanta. But when I was in high school, we did a senior trip of historically black colleges and universities and toured around. And of course, we had to come to Atlanta. And a group of us snuck away from our chaperone. We got in a cab and we went down on Camilton Road and went to Cisco's nightclub. And when I walked in there, I thought I had died and woke up in Black Hollywood. I had never seen so many nice, professional black people in one place at one time, and I was sold. I said, if I ever move away from home, this is the place I want to come. And then fast forward, after I went to school, Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio, got my bachelor's degree, cum laude, from Central State in communications, radio, and television. Then I went home for a while. I taught, I did public relations, and then I moved to Atlanta. And I've loved it ever since. I lived over by Atlantic Station at that time, which wasn't the Atlantic Station that we know now, was Atlanta Steel. And I rented an attic apartment, and I finally became a homeowner, bought a house not far from here in Riverside Community. First day I was unpacking, my parents were helping, the gentleman drove up, said, we're starting a neighborhood group. We're having a meeting tonight. My dad said, well, we'll finish packing. You just go with him. So I went with him. I ended up being the president of the Neighborhood Association. Ended up doing Crime Watch, youth programs, ended up chairing the MPU, had an opportunity to work as the chair of the MPU, but also as an aide to Councilmember Gloria Bromell Tanubu, who represented District 12 at the time. So it gave me the unique opportunity to see how city government operated and what I wanted in the community. And of course, it ended up in a decision to run. And I ran and I won. And I've been on council now for 20 years.
Wow.
So that's kind of the long story.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that with us. Having come to Atlanta during an era that was, a mecca at that time, in particular for the black business world and for those that were aspiring for, a place that this city offered like no other. I know that you had the opportunity to be around civil rights leaders, those that helped Maynard Jackson get into office, I'm sure.
And Maynard himself. I actually had the opportunity to run. You remember he had his term, he sat out, and then he came back for 4 years. So I had the opportunity to work on his campaign for that election, and that was a great experience. I was able to, because I was in the communications volunteer area, I was the one running around with him, taking down notes of the people that he took pictures with, and it was a wonderful experience, and he was a wonderful man.
Well, then I know that you can share a little bit about your relationship with the faith community and this particular significance that community plays here in Atlanta with our legacy, but also in our communities, and particularly in your district. It's been quite a journey. Is there anything that you'd like to share from a faith perspective about that relationship that you have with the faith community and what they offer and what they bring today as well as in the past?
Well, of course, many of our civil rights leaders, which I was just floored and excited to meet as I had moved here to Atlanta, were in the faith community. Reverend Laurie, I certainly remember him. I volunteered at the Southern Christian Leadership Council and got to meet him, attended his church, and many others. And what I can say about the faith community is, of course, we know in the African American community, that's the bedrock. That's where the civil rights movement was born, where we organized, where we got together, and it's still the same today. I do find that in this district that many of our faith leaders are very involved, all of them on different levels, whether it's helping to feed the less fortunate, helping to provide resources for them. But most importantly, I have several churches in my district where the residents of the district actually go to that church. Because many churches, because they're regional, there are people who come from outside of Atlanta to be a part of it. But I have several churches where many of the residents actually live there, and the ministers have been extremely supportive. I'll give as an example, Pastor Carson with Springfield Missionary Baptist Church. If there's an issue or something going on in the community, he comes and he encourages his memberships to come. So they're very active and involved in the MPUs and the neighborhood groups or anything that we've done. Many of the churches have opened their doors. Salem Bible Church, Reverend Jasper's, he's awesome. He just does things on a national level, but also here in the district. They've opened their church, Paradise. I can just go on, but all of them have been very supportive of making sure our community is better.
Congressman John Lewis has been endorsing candidates during this election cycle. Mm-hmm. Previously, he endorsed C.T. Martin, mm-hmm. and then recently Alex Swan. And in his quote, he says, "Atlanta stands at a crossroads of progress and preservation. We must continue to reinforce our beloved city's global role as a capital of innovation and opportunity while also preserving its rich history. This also means ensuring it remains affordable, accessible, and safe for both its long-term residents who work every day to make it the city we love and for everyone who wants to join us here." And then he goes on to indicate that the leader that takes on city council president needs to have an inclusive vision that Atlanta will need to have to navigate this crucial time in our history. And then he says, "This is necessary to continue the progress that my fellow citizens and I have been working decades to achieve." Mm-hmm. I just found that was a very interesting quote from him, and I'd love to give you the opportunity to share from your perspective mm-hmm. how you feel you're that kind of a leader that would have the inclusive vision that he was addressing mm-hmm. in that communication.
Well, I thought he was talking about me. So, I do know Representative John Lewis, and I've reached out to him several times. We just were not able to match each other. I think that, he certainly is welcome to endorse whom he wished, but I don't think that anything in his statement are not attributable to myself. We have a very diverse district here, and I am, more than my opponent in many ways, more uniquely qualified to represent a diverse district. It's not sort of monolithic. We have people who are in Buckhead, who are wealthy, moderately wealthy. We have people who are along Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway, which are medium to lower income persons. And we have Hispanics in this district. This district is very diverse. And I've been able to work with all of those different areas in my district. So I think he's describing me. I don't think that anything he's attributing to my opponent, he wouldn't attribute to me.
Would you like to say something about the global perspective? That may be another arena to address, because you're in a citywide office now, mm-hmm. As city council president.
Well, and that makes me a better candidate. And I'll say this, one of the things is about relationships and not living in a bubble and not living just in the city of Atlanta. And unlike my opponent, I understood that very early on. So when I first got elected, the first thing I did was attend a National League of Cities conference. It's a conference that's made up of cities from across the country, where we come together and we develop policy and push and advocate policy on behalf of cities with our federal government. And I've been involved, not just going to the conventions. I have chaired I've been the national president of the National Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials, no small feat. I've also been on the board of directors for the National League of Cities. I've served as chair of the Finance, Administration, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. I've been very involved, and I've built relationships across the country. So if we have people or personnel that come from other cities, I can pick up the phone and call another council member and get that. But also in the state, I am very active and involved in the Georgia Municipal Association. I've served on the board. I've been the District 3 chairperson. I've built relationships with other council people and mayors in the state. And those relationships are important. But even more important than that, on a global perspective, there's a World Conference of Mayors, and I've been very intricately involved with them. I haven't been able to, the timing wasn't right to tour with them in some of the international cities that they go to, but I have also hosted delegations from Nigeria and other countries, and I've also worked very closely with them when we host them from African countries. So I understand that the city of Atlanta is an international place, and I am poised to do that because I have those relationships as well.
I got it. One of the issues for this candidates forum is really steeped in how is there going to be fair and equitable development with all the major redevelopment coming to Northwest Atlanta. And you've been, of course, very much in the trenches around all of that, and the challenges are real.
Yes, they are.
And I just want to know, from a small business perspective, how do you see the small businesses that exist and have been really struggling to stay can be included in the development, particularly with all the environmental revitalization? Perhaps speak a little bit about green economic development as small businesses here could be included.
Well, first of all, let's start with small businesses, and that's been a focal point, and I've been very supportive. Most of the small business owners here know me. I practice what I preach. I go to the wing place, I go to the beauty supply place. I try to make sure that I spend my personal dollars with my business owners, and so that way I hear their challenges. I've heard a lot of challenges along the Hollowell Parkway corridor in particular, because we lost about 10,000 or more residents from Bankhead, Bowen, and Hollywood Courts when we closed down the housing project. We took away a lot of their business. And so when I go there, they tell me, Councilmember Moore, we need more customers, we need more people, we need more development so that we can have more people here. So I understand what their needs are. I've also been very focused on making sure they understood the resources that we have at the city and through Invest Atlanta. And I've hosted over my time several informative sessions for them so that they can build the capacity, so that they can grow their business and take advantage of some of the incentives that we had. In terms of green infrastructure, I certainly have worked with some of the developers. We have had some test houses that were built that are green and energy efficient. I am very supportive of our initiatives to make smaller gardens on some of the vacant properties that we have. So I've done all of that in one way or the other, working with the people here in District 9, and not only in District 9, but across the city.
What do you think will make the difference between where we currently are with things being so dire to true inclusion of the small businesses all across Atlanta, but particularly in Northwest Atlanta? How will we close that gap?
Well, first, I think it's a multifaceted thing. So first of all, capacity building. I think a lot of our small business owners, those that I've met, really need capacity building so that they have the tools that they need to understand how to operate a business. A lot of people have great ideas and want to be business owners, but they're not necessarily have their business plan, have the right access to capital, that kind of thing. We have a program that's been going on for years where you can get money for your small business, and I think along the Hollowell Parkway corridor in the 20 years I've been there, maybe 3 or 4 have actually qualified and actually taken advantage of that. So it's a constant education program to let them know what those resources are, and of course they have to be willing to do that as well. I think the economic development piece has to do with the neighborhoods that are surrounding a particular corridor. And so for me, I try to focus on the basic, because if I have failing neighborhoods where houses are being vacated, all of the housing authority people are gone, how do you get more rooftops? How do you get more families in? You've got to stabilize that community. And that means blight reduction. We do tire cleanups. I've picked up more trash than probably anybody else. I've picked up tires. I've picked up all kind of things, because the look of your community also attracts or detracts people from where they want to go. So my focus is, I think that we have to start with the neighborhoods as they are, build them up, stabilize them, because that's another way to have affordable housing. If the housing stock is affordable and you keep the neighborhood vibrant, then it's going to stabilize. It will be longer before you get someone coming in. What is occurring, and I have one neighborhood in particular in my district, is that we allow it to deteriorate to a point where the property values are so low that you make it easy for an investor to come in and buy a property for pennies on the dollar. I have one neighborhood that's probably owned 85% by one person. So when that one person gets to the point where they're ready to divest themselves of that property, they can sell it as an assembled piece of property. And I guarantee you the new developer that comes in will take that over, and you'll have $300,000-$400,000 homes. And then you see the gentrification come in. So if we can stabilize our communities as they are, we can make sure that we continue to have affordable housing stock.
I know the last little piece that was a part of this forum that I want to make sure you get an opportunity to address is education.
Yes.
And when you're talking about stabilizing the community and the rooftops and families, there cannot be any more greater imperative than a high quality education.
No doubt about it. And it makes all the difference. I kind of use it as an example. I live right behind where we are now in Riverside. I had a home. I bought it years ago, like I told you, when I moved here. And it was $31,000 at that time. And the house, I would tell people the neighborhood was in a transition. It was about 75% rental. And when I would drive down the street, I used to have to dodge two things. You know, people who were on crack and chickens that were in the road. But then the neighborhood started to change as time went on because the people who rented the properties started divesting themselves of the property. Other people bought it, started building it up, and then they start building these $250,000 homes. So you have a mix. You have moderate homes and you have these other homes. That home is 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, about 1,200 square feet. I was fortunate enough to move into a neighborhood. I just bought a home 2 years ago in a neighborhood that I was blown away by when I was campaigning. That's historic Collier Heights. That house is over 3,600 square feet. It's 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, 3.5 baths. Large home. When we got the property assessment, it really hit home for me that the home that I bought, the big one, the nice big one in historic Collier Heights, was valued less than the 1,200 square foot 1 bedroom home that I have in Riverside. What's the difference? The difference is the school district. The one over in Riverside is in the North Atlanta School District. The one in historic Collier Heights is in the Douglas School District. It makes a difference. And people are putting, that's why Buckhead is just like building on top of each other. If they don't want to put their children in private schools, they want to get them near a school where they feel that their kids are going to get a good quality education. And we have got to address, and the city needs to work with the school board in any way we can, the disparity, not only in economics and that kind of thing, but as you said, in our schools. And making sure that all schools can provide good quality education, because then people will make other decisions. You're not going to have people rushing to put their kids on one side of town if the schools make a difference. And families are important.
What would you like to say to the citizens across Atlanta over this weekend heading into Tuesday?
Well, I think they have some very important decisions to make. Every election people say it's important, but this one is extremely important because we're at a crossroads here in the city. We're going to have half of the council that will be new. You'll have a new mayor, a new council president, and now's the time to make decisions about how we want our city to move forward. We know where we've been, we know what we've done, but we also know the issues that we just discussed, and others are things that we really have to address. And we need to make sure that we have leadership that's going to speak up and speak out and speak on your behalf. As council president, I'm not elected by the council, and I'm not elected or appointed by the mayor. I'm appointed by the citizens. And that's who I've been working for, and that's who I want to continue to work for as the next city council president. And if you have issues that are of concern to you, you feel that you're not getting them addressed, or you're not having the input that you want from the council or others, come to see me. And I'll make sure that your voices are heard, and I make sure that we also have your input in how we move forward. So I want people to elect me as their next Atlanta City Council president so I can continue working for them.